Welcome back to The Drive here on the HAN Network every Tuesday. The Drive is about all things that motivate us and move us forward. People, places, ideas, and organizations that help us reframe, move us out of our comfort zone, find something a little bit new to maybe try, some inspiration. Each and every week we have somebody new on that can help us move forward. We start the show off with a mindful minute from Denise, that would be me. Can you guys pull that image up? Here's what I want you to think about on the heels of today's show. Here is an unfinished project I will commit to today, this week, or this month. You fill in the blank. Remember, when you write things down, it crystallizes them in a way that helps you move them forward. It's not just a thought. You've given it some energy and put it on paper. And today we're talking with Elena Cahill, who is the director of the Student Entrepreneurial Center here at the Bridgeport University, as well as attorney.
Yes.
Faculty member.
Yes.
But the journey began as a hairdresser.
Yes.
So the promotion that I sent out on your behalf said, necessity is the mother of all invention. So today we're talking about moving forward, starting projects, moving projects forward, and taking baby steps towards whatever those dreams are. And we're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
I'm so pleased that you came on so that we can hear your journey and maybe inspire other people with sort of all the twists and turns that led you to what seems like the perfect spot for you. Sort of a serial entrepreneur that's helped other people start and grow businesses.
Wow.
Woo, that was a big mouthful. Did I get it all right?
That was great. It's funny to hear it, you know?
Yeah.
I haven't thought about the hairdressing world in a while. It was so much fun.
But that was one of the first things you told me as a much younger person you did.
Yeah.
That sort of was maybe one of your first professions?
I went to high school. I went to a trade high school where I studied cosmetology, and I enjoyed it. And I practiced it for a little bit, but I always practiced it in a different form of a content, meaning I worked at Zoto's and Darien that created hair products, testing them. And then I went to school in New York City for cosmetology to further that part of it, and to be an esthetician, which I really enjoyed. And I thought about theatrical makeup back then, because I thought that would be really fun.
That's kind of cool.
But I don't think I'm artistic enough. So I rechanneled again, and that's how it brought me to college. I went to college because I thought originally that I wanted to do theatrical makeup. I love skincare. So starting in the hairdressing cosmetology, my passion with that would have been skin. Then I went on thinking I would be a doctor and go to school, and I started college a chemistry major.
So you always had large aspirations. Is that true?
I guess, yeah. You know, I let my aspirations kind of just be any size they are.
Any size they are.
Yeah. Right.
That's very interesting. Okay, so you were a hairdresser with all these interests in furthering on to maybe being a dermatologist.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Yeah, that's great. You know, I often wonder that. So while in college, during the January break, I received a scholarship to go to Washington, D.C. And I did. So I go to D.C. I've never been to D.C., right? Hadn't traveled so much. And I get to D.C. and everyone's a lawyer. Oh. And they're really cool. And
so it's the power of influence.
Yeah, they were speaking very concisely, and I was so intrigued by the global environment, the global impact, how they just were able to learn a little about a lot of things, and I thought, wow, this would be really cool. Maybe I'll go to law school. And I did, and I ended up deviating and going on to law school, and at that point with the intent to stay in the medical field. Oh. So when I was taking my electives, I stayed in the medical health field, the health sector, and actually post-graduating law school, after I took the bar, I was waiting for my results, I edited a book on advanced directives and stayed in the legal healthcare realm in the beginning, which then branched. That just, you know, things just keep evolving, right?
Right.
And that just kept evolving. So that evolved into more business acumen, and there we go.
So oftentimes people have a mentor or something that does influence them, and you say your trip, but was there anyone that was instrumental in kind of spearheading your journey, or were you just internally motivated?
I think I'm internally motivated.
So you're kind of born with that?
Yeah, I have to say. And as a matter of fact, probably the reverse. So, and not to any fault, but I come from immigrant parents and Italian immigrant parents who believe that.
Are you first generation?
Yeah, I'm a first generation here. My mother would have thought like I should have been married by 23.
Right. Oh, mine were in the same boat.
Like, she was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I'm going to run the risk that I'll still find a husband. But we,
imagine that.
yeah. And I remember saying to her, I want to go to med school. And she's like, we're tradespeople. I'm like, no, I'm whatever I want to be.
Yeah.
That's what I am. And I can go to school and I can choose to do whatever I want to do. So
you had a little chutzpah there. You were willing to challenge the norm and some of our family traditions.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was interesting. I saw it as an opportunity to pave the way for the new thought of a generation in a new country.
So you already thought about that early on as a young person.
Yeah. I thought to myself, I'm like, she just doesn't, that's all she knows. Like, she was raised in this environment, and her advice would be advice that her parents would have given her. And it would have been, the proof would have been how that population would have done it. They would have been married young. They would have had children young, not so dissimilar from many Latin cultures. And I thought, it doesn't have to be that way, right? And it could all be okay.
Right.
And
we walked that same journey together,
See?
but we didn't know. Yes, we didn't know each other back then. Very, very similar.
But we do know each other because we know what that's like to live with parents that come from another country that have not yet experienced other ways of doing things.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So we should just backtrack a
Sure.
smidge. Are you from this area?
I am.
Where did you grow up?
I was born in Bridgeport. I grew up in Trumble, so I'm local.
You're a local lady.
I lived in Stratford. I mean, probably all the local towns: Black Rock, Stratford, Orange. Now I'm in Brantford. I haven't gone very far, but I have taken some stints out and lived in. I went to school in New York and I went to school in New Jersey, and I lived out in LA for a while doing some work.
Right. So I found that interesting when we were talking offline. You were a mom, and then a divorced mom, and then needing to propel yourself to whatever your next ambition was. Tell me about that journey.
Sure. So we fast forward through life, and I practiced law, and in law I was doing corporate reorganizations, and I had this sort of bad accident for a bit. And during that time I started doing more consulting type business work, and at that time I started getting more creative projects, which you would love. So I was getting asked to do things like create hair salons and create tequila and create really fun
I read
things.
that in your bio. You created a spa in Hollywood that LA that had never existed.
Well, it had not existed at that particular location, which was a really cool location because it was a historical location on Sunset where Marilyn Monroe would have lived in Bugsy Malone, a really cool Art Deco. It's now the Sunset Tower. It had been the Argyle or the St. James, all of them being the same building. Really fun. So one of the opportunities I had gotten was to go out in LA and actually really just be able to develop these projects from concept to fruition and give a team a completed product. A completed product meaning a business operational with a management team. And that was super fun. Like, that was
How
really
long did
fun.
that take?
A few years. So a little bit of time I was commuting. A lot of time I was commuting. Then I decided I really needed to live there, so I moved my kids and I to LA. And it was so much fun. So it was great, and the work mindset there is, on the artistic front, I think is much more open, and the idea of having somebody help with you and work with you as a consultant to create a business is a very common idea there. It's not so common on the East Coast. So it was super fun. I was able to really move forward on several projects that were really fun projects. And that particular location, I think now has been sold to the Beverly Hills Hotel Spa. Now acquired it, and another product that came from there was a tequila that was incredibly fun. I'm not as much fun as tequila is, actually. So but that is here. It's here in Connecticut. It's probably in 1,500 doors today in Connecticut. It's all over the country.
So what I'm kind of hearing was, even though my promotion said necessity is the mother of invention, it wasn't that you were coming up with things out of necessity. They were kind of coming to you.
Yeah, and it's funny. I love the choice of that topic, actually, and when I read it, when I saw it in print and I read it, I thought to myself, it's sort of a necessity for me, I think. And I say that is, you take part of what your inner drive is and satisfying that, and there's a necessity in that, in finding challenges and figuring out productive work environments. So, I feel myself very fortunate in the sense where I've been able to channel that energy I might have inside in a productive way, because I think some people don't know how to channel it productively, and they feel that when you have a need to continue to do things or continue to learn, I think might be the best word. You like learning about things, products, industries. And sometimes if you don't have the ability to figure out how to harness that properly, it gets lost, because maybe you leave a job because you're looking for the next step, but you haven't figured out how to get to the next step yet.
So I want to get into this in segment 2 after our commercial break, but I do want to hold on to the thought. I want to know how you empower your students in the Entrepreneurial Center to take that energy. Because first of all, I know entrepreneurs like myself and like you are very energetic, and we're always seeking, learning, and making better. And sometimes, for me, you might rush by an opportunity because you see so many that you're trying to put all of them in a chain and make them all flourish. And sometimes I think it's, the drive is about moving forward mindfully, right? And finding all of the juiciness of whatever it is you're in that moment. And I think it feels to me like you didn't struggle. Did you struggle?
Yeah, I definitely. So that was a great comment that you just made. And that word mindfulness, doing things mindfully, any action. It's so, I think, critically important, right? And I wasn't doing that really young. In my younger years, I was struggling more because I kept feeling like I hadn't found it, and I kept trying to find it, and I wasn't sure what it was at the time.
Great comment.
I kept switching or trying to get as many experiences as I could, but not because every one of them was really my ultimate goal, because I was still looking for it.
Right.
And with age came the idea and the concept of it is all it, right? And to your point, what you just said, the mindfulness was be grateful, stop looking when you're in the middle of it, you give it 110%, and you want everything to be the best success it can be, and be patient and be happy with that. And that brought me to understanding in my own life, don't keep looking while you're in the middle of doing for something, right? Don't feel as though something's passing you by. The world is full of opportunities and
never stopping.
Correct.
They're populating all the time.
Exactly. So you can still give 110% to what you're doing, make it the best you can be. And you asked me about mentors, and I will say there's always been people that I certainly look to, listen to, and a woman who was doing a yoga class, Beryl Burcham Moses, teaches power yoga out of New York City, and she would say, and I study yoga a lot, and she would say, don't do or say anything you don't want to read on the front page of the New York Times. And I love that comment, right?
That's a great comment.
And for me,
that might be next week's mind.
There you go. Don't do or say anything you don't want to see on the cover of the New York Times. I didn't say that. Beryl Burcham Moses did. And it always stuck in my head, and it plays back. And then I tie that into success. And anything you do, make sure you be proud of it if you saw it on the New York Times. And you give it all 110%, and you do the best you can do.
Right.
So there always are people's impressions and comments that influence me along the way. But one of the things I had to learn on my own was to slow it down and to stop looking for it, whatever that was, and to say, this is it right now.
And then when I teach the seminars that we were talking about earlier offline, I always say, people are always saying, well, she has it all or he has it all. So what is this elusive all, right? It's what your all is. And I think that's really important, especially as an entrepreneur, where sometimes you get stuck in the vortex of doing the mundane administrative tasks, and you have this great idea that you feel like isn't moving forward, but really is, because you're stuck in that funnel. And in finding that mindfulness, you're living your all, and that's your all in that moment that I think is so important.
Yes, you have great phases in that moment, and that is so true.
Right.
Just not so long ago, I had an experience at my company, and my cousin walked in. And she said to me, she saw me unloading a box from Staples maybe, and she said, you're unloading your own box? I said, of course I would.
Yeah.
And she's like, why? I'm like, because I need something in the box. So I'll unload the box. Like, it doesn't even dawn on me, because every single thing I do in that office, to me, is important.
Right.
And I don't distinguish the importance of it. It's all important.
I was teaching that to our interns. I said, in the world of entrepreneurialism, I need to be able to do every job that I would task anyone else to do. Not only do you start off that way as an entrepreneur, but then you have a greater understanding. And it talks back to our friend Larry at Conscious Capitalism, right?
That's right.
It's making it an inclusive, collaborative.
That's right.
Yeah, we want to make profit for sure. But when everybody understands all the processes, then we kind of move forward together as a much more collaborative team.
So true. I'll give you another mentor in that thought for me. It's a gentleman named Max Crespo, who I worked with him. I had my entire company work with him for a year and a half every week, and we worked with him. And we worked with him to set individual goals for the overarching company and then individual people. What the thought was that you didn't have a boss. As long as we all knew the motivation of the company, everybody worked towards that end. And we lost the idea of titles, and we lost the idea of boss, and we lost the idea of needing approval. It was trust yourself. And I'm not a great micromanager. right? Great macro picture, great to get things pushed forward. I don't want to micromanage every one of my employees. And, the idea was I had to help them understand that they are enough, their decisions are going to be aligned. As long as we're all aligned and we're all working to the same goal, you can make your own decisions, trust yourself. And Max Crespo actually had written a book about that, and I thought it was brilliant and brought him in for, like I said, a year and a half, I think, weekly. And we literally did nice writing events and consciously speaking about what the goals of the company were in the different departments, and everybody was on the same page. There were no distinguishing of job titles from that point forward ever again.
Isn't that remarkable?
So like you come to my company and people might say, what are you? It's like, we all just work at this company.
We just do it.
We just do it.
We just get it done.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we know who's going to pick up what piece for more heavy lifting in that particular area. But the reality is that's how it is. There's no job titles at my company.
Isn't that phenomenal? And on that note, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we're going to be right back, everyone. And we're going to learn more about the Entrepreneurial Center and the things that you've done to make it a complete success, not only with your life, but with the students there. We'll be right back. It's live here at The Drive every Tuesday on the HN Network. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Connecticut is coming back to hometown banking, to a partner that makes small businesses feel big, where community comes first, where you get the know-how only neighbors can deliver, where saving time is important too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well, bank smart, bank local, bank well. With the 24-month Bank Well Smart CD, you can earn 1.35% APY and raise your rate and add to your CD.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
For more than 50 years, Triple S has been Fairfield County's expert service for carpet, upholstery, and drapery cleaning. We provide the best in repairs and in-depth restoration, understanding fabrics and how to properly clean and restore them. Our staff will come to your home to clean your wall-to-wall carpet to perfection. We can also pick up your fine carpets and bring them to our facilities. With locations in Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford, Triple S will get the job done fast, big or small. At Triple S, you can count on our people as well as our cleaning. Find us at triplesclean.com or 203-847-8000.
You're watching the HAN Network, and you're not alone. Nearly 1 million people have watched our live sports, news, and entertainment programming since the network launched in August 2015. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
You know, necessity is the mother of invention, as you know, and we're talking with Elena Cahill today, who is a faculty member and the head of the Entrepreneurial Student Center at UB, University of Bridgeport. So I think there's so many things that go on when you're an entrepreneur. We know as seasoned entrepreneurs, but let's start with your students, the ones that are coming in that have these fabulous ideas and maybe some entrepreneurial experience, but most of them probably have none.
None.
Take us from the ground floor. What are you doing to impart your knowledge to these students so they understand that much of the time they're going to need to be resourceful from the get-go, unless they have some wildly successful Kickstarter campaign, but then still there's going to be a lot of accountability.
It's it's really interesting to me. So this is a relatively new baby for us at the university, and it's birthed out of the concept of students can take a class, a business planning class, so a small business entrepreneurship class. So they take the class, and a few of those I had noticed over the 10 years of teaching this were interested in moving forward. But the class was over and life went on, right? And they didn't have a place. So finally, it's like, we need a place. Like, some of these students want to continue their ideas. And you saw it in certain students. So wrote a quick business plan, got some money from a really wonderful gentleman, Ernie Treves, and we started the center. And the school was really gracious in letting me do that very quickly. So I put out there thinking I was going to have 12 students throughout the university my first year. That was my business plan.
What year was this?
We are 1 full year. So a year ago, 14 months ago, I wrote the business plan, 15 months ago. So I thought maybe we'll have like 12 students. That's my business plan. And the model was that I would hire outside business professionals in linear sectors. So an accountant, an attorney, a person that does graphics to help the students and mentor them. And I was sort of just overwhelmed when in the first month of the first semester, which was August of last year, that we opened the center, the first month we had like 26 applicants. And I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And then it just blossomed. So we had, in the course of the first year, 84 applicants to the Student Entrepreneur Center from all of the schools at the university.
How many schools are there?
There were 11. And they
Wow.
came from everywhere. They came from health sciences, naturopathic physician, chiropractor, global studies, engineering, every school. So the first lesson for me was that entrepreneurial is not just business oriented. It came from every single discipline, every school, students
Every
had
sector.
idea.
Right.
And they didn't even cross. So a student coming from the school of chiropractic might have wanted to start a real estate business. It wasn't even as though he was staying in his field. He
Wow.
just had ideas. So I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So our concept at the time was, early on, was that you would be assigned a mentor, and your mentor would walk you through a business model canvas, the ideation process, right? Help you do some external vetting, and then get into more of the nuts and bolts of the business once you actually were vetting out the idea of the business. And I learned that my skill sets, the 5 mentors I had hired, some of them just weren't natural entrepreneurs, right? So
interesting.
maybe your lawyer's not a natural entrepreneur, maybe your accountant's not a natural entrepreneur. They're just really great at that skill set. So we sort of revamped, as you would, right? Any type of an entrepreneur is going to have to, be fluid.
Right.
And we said, wait, hold on.
Flexibility,
Exactly.
adaptability.
We're like, restructure. Okay, a few of you were great mentors.
Off-road.
Yeah. And a few of you not so much. So let's chase that. And so the concept is that we ended up finding which one of our resources were really good mentors. So our first challenge was with the mentors, actually, not the students. And how would we support the students to help them with the idea of ideation? Now, we have another elevated level at the University of Bridgeport, which has a very high international population. One of the things I absolutely love about the university, and that is you have to worry about visa status
Right.
when creating businesses, and we don't want to hurt their student visa. So that added an elevated complexity, which meant that I had to deal with the administration of the university more than you would want to, and work through true, very important issues of visa status and how we were going to start businesses for international students. So timing and things of this nature. And then we have the actual students. Their drive motivated all of us. The energy coming from these students kept all of us working more than we ever thought we would be working. And as they were coming, we just couldn't say no to them, right? It was just more. And you were just finding a way to make it work for them. So as any new business, we are still learning our path. We created an education platform for them where we were doing bi-weekly educational seminars that we were filming and putting on our campus, our university platform for them, so that if they couldn't attend the actual course, they could look at it on Canvas. We had them participating in startup weekends, state business plan competitions, as much experience in the outside world as we could get them. We formed a business club. We took the kids up to the Cambridge Innovation Center in Cambridge, which is so incredibly inspirational, for them to actually see working environments, to go to, they have on Thursdays a venture cafe, to be able to hear true venture people in Cambridge, of all places. To me, it is the coolest innovation center I've ever seen. So what we do for them is probably less than what they do for us, in all honesty, and motivating us. But what we try to do is expose them as much as possible to their opportunities outside. Try to get them as much real world experience so that when they are going to be in front of their own finance person, they've had an opportunity to hear it.
So where are they in the college? Are they freshmen, sophomores? Where are they?
Everything.
Anybody can come to you at any level.
Freshman to PhD.
They can say
Anybody.
Right. So as long
Yes.
as they're involved at the university,
Correct.
Your center is open to them.
Matriculated student with the student ID number. As long
Okay.
as they're a matriculated student in any school at the university any year, they're welcome to join us.
And so Tell me now we know all the different levels of workforce, right? We know the baby boomers right down to the millennials. And we know what it takes to be an entrepreneur, regardless of where we are in that lineage. What are you seeing as trends amongst the workforce that want to be entrepreneurs? Are we seeing certain behaviors that are new compared to the behaviors that you and I might carry as a little more seasoned entrepreneur and not necessarily the millennial workforce or the Generation X or the Generation Y?
You know, I would tell you from my vantage point, the answer is no. I think that I'm seeing from the millennials a very strong work ethic. Even though I read constantly that they don't have it, I see it. And I see it, and I can tell you I experience it. I can go to our Entrepreneur Center first thing in the morning when I arrive on campus, or I could be leaving at 11 o'clock at night and there's students there working. A true entrepreneurial spirited student is working around the clock. And yes, they do a lot of work on their computers or their laptops, but they also do write as well. Mm-hmm. And they do draw. You know, the center is full of boards, as you can imagine, glass boards, whiteboards. Mm-hmm. And you'll see the students congregating around boards, and they're still on the boards.
So that tactical, well, that brings great joy to my heart to hear, certainly. The people are really, not that technology is bad, it is super needed, but I think there's such power, of course, where I come from, in writing it down, doodling it, mind mapping it, visual diagramming. But I don't want to get off the track on that. What I like in what you've said is, these entrepreneurs, the common vibe has nothing to do with their age. It's sort of like when you're in an entrepreneurial mindset, it's a different type of work ethic.
Correct.
Right.
And without a doubt, it's elevated. It's an elevated work ethic.
Right.
And there is some steering involved, but as would be expected, right?
Well, of course, guiding students.
Yes, and keeping them a little bit on track and making sure that they don't get disappointed or frustrated if they get a quote for a web design and it's higher than they anticipated. Helping them understand that they can achieve that, giving them roads to achieve it.
Right.
The goal is always helping them understand that everything is achievable and you just have to really piece it and work towards that goal and don't get overwhelmed. On top of the fact that many of them, so go back to what you asked me, what school do they come from? They come from all the schools, and most of them, and you correctly stated, have no business knowledge because they're coming from an arts or a health sciences or humanities, and they have no business behind them. So one is that we have to actually teach them business acumen, like true business acumen. And then the second is we're working on the development of their product, whatever that might be. And having those two worlds blend, because it still is an education in part, even though there's no credit involved, they're not getting anything for this. They're getting the ability to have a place to work.
Well, you're giving them a resource. And
yes, that's what it is, correct.
So I'm coming to the center and I have an idea. Of course, I have 950 ideas at any given time. What is the first thing I'm doing when I hit the center? What sort of resource are you giving me?
So once we do your actual paperwork, right, to make sure that you should be a member of the center, and all that really means is that you really have an idea. So you would have many. The next thing we start with is this business model canvas, which is ideation. And now we're going to vet the idea. And we're going to not do it for you. We're going to teach you how to vet your idea. And we're probably going to take that out so that you're doing some real studying outside in the community.
A little focus grouping,
correct.
So to speak.
We're going to force some surveys, some focus grouping, communication. Entrepreneurs, as you know, often think their idea is the right idea right out the gate, and they don't want to tell anybody. And we have to sort of say, it's the opposite. You need to speak to your customer, who is everybody, and let's figure out what they like about your idea, and let's really be open to making changes. And the students are mesmerized in this process. They come in with this concept, or 10, right? And the first thing we have to do is focus them on one.
And normally they think this is the newest thing since Facebook, correct, right? I am going to sink it home.
Correct.
And I just got we're going to hold right there because Eric just said we need to take a break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. And if you want to learn how to start your own business and really get a good grip on it, tune in for our last 15 minutes. It's The Drive here on HAN Network every Tuesday. Moving people forward mindfully, people, places, ideas, and organizations. Come right back. We've got a lot to share in this last 15 minutes with Elena. Thanks so much.
Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook. A Better View Window Cleaning Plus has been cleaning glass all over Connecticut for over 20 years. They also specialize in cleaning chandeliers, mirrors, skylights, tiles, and will power wash anything that needs cleaning. They hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and are fully insured and bonded. When you deal with a Better View, you're dealing with the best, not the rest. Call today for a free estimate, 203-284-8836, or visit them online, abetterviewcleaning.com.
Alberto Londano Professional Painting, Wallpapering, and Carpentry has been serving Fairfield County for over 20 years. Based in Norwalk, Alberto takes pride in his work by offering you only the best quality service and products. Call Alberto today to get a free estimate and be one step closer to a new and exciting home makeover. 203-866-9635.
Warm weather, light breezes, boats are in the water. There's no better place to celebrate summer than the Dock Shop. Whether in Darien at 51 Tokenique Road or Westport at 609 Riverside Avenue, the Dock Shop is where you'll find everything you need to kick off summer. From the latest summer apparel to the newest fishing tackle, the Dock Shop will help you get the most out of your next beach day or harbor cruise. At the Dock Shop, you'll find a wonderful selection of items made in the USA and right here in New England, all with a distinct nautical flair. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the coastal lifestyle, this is a unique place to shop. DockShop.com.
I'm Kate Chaplinsky. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN network.
Entrepreneurialism, something that's very dear to my heart for all of you that know me. And, you know, every once in a while I say to Eric and Kate, can we just please do like 5 shows in a row about entrepreneurialism? So we're trying to fit a whole bunch in today. And I'm so thankful that Elena Cahill, who is on the faculty of UB and runs the Student Entrepreneurial Center, has been sharing an hour of her knowledge on what it takes to go through a life as a serial entrepreneur and then help others do that. So right before the break, we were talking about the students in the center, how motivated they are, and they're coming to you with ideas, and you're teaching them how to vet it out in public. Mm-hmm. So let's say I have a great idea, and I've vetted it to the degree that I think it's good, and I'm going to start to now pull it together. Mm-hmm. What's my next step?
So you're working now, your commitment to the center is that you're going to work with your mentor continually, and that's every week. So you're meeting your mentor every week.
So are these student mentors,
No.
faculty members,
These
paid
are
members?
paid members from the community, business professionals that we have for you. And the mentor's working with you. And we created books. So we're very visual people as well. So we created books, and the books have tabs. And there's actually like 22 tabs. And the students are going to start going through this one by one. Mm-hmm. And some of they're running a parallel road, and we have project management templates for them so that they can sort of start managing their projects. And now they have to start touching on the systems of business. Oh. So once the ideation part is over, mm-hmm. now we're going to get into more business acumen. And what are the systems of business? Well, your systems of business are going to be, you are going to need a true branding, logo, imaging, marketing plan. You are going to need a true financial plan, a true operational plan, a true legal plan. You're going to need physical space. We're going to possibly need some type of intellectual property. And now we're going to start hitting those one by one. And like
what
I
about
said,
marketing and digital influencing and engagement?
Mm-hmm. All of
that's
Is that
falling under your branding tab?
It's falling under, thank you. It's falling under our marketing tab. And then we have actual individual tabs for that. So we have digital marketing is one set. Mm-hmm. We have your physical marketing, your branding, logo, imaging is another set. Mm-hmm. And then your actual true marketing plan. We make them create a true marketing plan. So if I was to say, what's the end game? The end game is that before any student leaves, they're able to do, and as an entrepreneur, you'll appreciate what I'm going to say, a 3-minute pitch. And you might say, we're going to go spend a year at a center to get to a 3-minute pitch. Well, you are.
Well, of course.
Because you need all that work behind you for your deck, for that pitch. And that pitch is going to include everything we just spoke of, right? It's going to have the ideation, it's going to have the vetting, it's going to have your true marketing plan, your true finances, your true operations. And a lot of it you also have to think about how long it takes to cost materials, source materials, depending on what the particular company will be. So it's a lot of time invested on the student's part. And many of these students now are probably also athletes or working. We have a high population of internationals. We have a high population of first-generation students, older students. Most of our students are not 18 years old, coming right from high school. So they often have other commitments. So we appreciate
they're like road
them.
pancake like the rest of us. They're sort of Gumbyism. They've got a lot going on.
And they come here, and you could just see them sort of be at peace, and you could tell that they enjoy being here because they come in and they sort of like, as you can imagine, run up the stairs, run in the door, and then just slow it down a bit, right? And if they're meeting with their team or peers or friends and they're collaborating, it's great. But you can see how they all just kind of like start breathing a little bit once they've gotten used to the center.
I think what's important to mention, what comes to mind, is that when you've got a lot going on, yes, you need a plan, because without a plan, you plan to fail. However, there's a certain part of an entrepreneur that just needs to get it going and sort of work that plan. For example, in the Daily Drive initiative, as we said offline beforehand, I might have started it off one way with one business model in mind, and it's a completely different way now, because that's how I wanted to go for my lifestyle. And I had to adjust and say, this is what works for me, and this is what works for my audience in the end. So do you factor that into your students? You say, look, we can create this elaborate business plan, but you, as you're moving it along, may have to be flexible to adjust it and see where it rears its head for other things that could be abundant that you didn't even think of, right?
Yes, and so that brings up a great point. We don't actually even use the word business plan anymore. We don't technically create a business plan anymore. And the business model canvas is the solution to that. That's the fluidity. It says, here are questions to ask. Here are some, if you can go online, www.businessmodelcanvas.com, and you'll see one. And it has the different sectors of ideation and marketing and your customer base. And it gives you questions to answer. Maybe 5-10 questions in every section.
Is that a free source?
Free source, yes.
What is it
free
again?
Source available for everybody. Business Model Canvas, and it's www.businessmodelcanvas.com.
Oh, that is a great resource, businessmodelcanvas.com.
And in the world of entrepreneurship educationally, we've lost the idea of business plans. Although I do teach a class where you'll write one, at the Entrepreneurship Center, you'll never hear it spoken. We don't want you to create a business plan because it would be a tremendous amount of energy, and it would effectively be a static document that would be incorrect by the time you were done writing it.
Right.
So we tell them, don't worry about writing a business plan. You need to worry about the systems of the business plan, like the components that are normally in a business plan, you need to be addressing, but we're not going to make them hard and fast, to your point exactly. So at the Student Entrepreneurship Center, you don't hear the word business plan ever. It doesn't even exist in our educational materials. It's not one of our seminars. Business Model Canvas is.
That's a fabulous term. I love the word canvas for so many reasons. The one thing that I find in some of the entrepreneurs I've mentored in some of the nonprofits I've worked for is that what your center does so fabulously is you teach them business processes and business acumen. Like, so many entrepreneurs just think this great idea is going to flourish and create wealth overnight or in a short period of time, and they get really upset when they have to do the administrative tasks. Some people, especially ladies, women are afraid to close and collect the money. So maybe their business struggles there. Many times people aren't up to speed with presenting in today's contemporary society. So they might not have the technology tools. Does your client want to hear it vis-a-vis an iPad? Are you sending them a PDF? Is it real time on the web? Is it a webinar? And oftentimes I feel like entrepreneurs that have fabulous ideas, but they don't have a center to go to, lack that ability, and therefore maybe that's why so many businesses fail. Right? It wasn't the idea was great, you didn't have the underpinnings to keep it going.
Keep the business acumen.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think the business acumen is a deficit, certainly not the ideas, right? Because then you see the ideas revisited by somebody else with the business acumen.
Right, and then
they're very successful, exactly. And the poor people are like, oh no.
Oh yeah, right.
But now, to your point, business acumen is really critically important. And just yesterday, we were doing this coming year's first semester calendar with my team. And we had a several-hour meeting, and we were going through the workshops, and I divided finance into theory and actual worksheets. and a new development for us, right? So I said, wait a minute, before we even get to worksheets, they're coming from schools, they don't even understand the theory behind what a financial statement is yet. So this is brand new for us, as we will keep changing, is here's my population. My population, I can't dive right into them with an income statement or profit and loss. They don't even understand what these are yet.
Yeah,
so
important.
Right?
The
so
theory.
now it is, let's start with finance theory. What is the purpose? What's the motivation? When will you need it? Let's bring in someone from a private equity group or a banker to say when they would be asking for it and why. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to touch doing a sheet that day. All we're going to do is we're going to talk about the theory behind it. So yes, to your point, I think really breaking things down to why is it important? Why is it that you as the entrepreneur need to have a basic understanding, even though there are resources that you will hire, why is it critically important that you understand a minimum amount of business acumen for your entire business? And I tell them nobody should know your business better than you do.
Right.
Nobody. And even if it's not what you love, you need to take the time to learn it. And you have to understand every single aspect, which is what you started back originally with in this whole beginning of the segment was, you may not want to do it all, you have to do it all, you have to touch it all, you have to understand it all. And understanding there is the educational component of, we respect that you don't walk in the door with this knowledge. We don't expect you're walking into it with this knowledge. Nor would a person not in an educational facility walk in with that knowledge, right? And part of our resource, I think, is helping them understand all the different components. So we just created a course on the other side, going back to the school now. I created a course called The Fundamentals of Entrepreneurship for non-business majors.
Great.
So now,
yes, we need that.
The School of Chiropractic and the School of Naturopathic just instituted as a mandatory course in their programs. Because this course is expecting you have no business knowledge, you've had no prior classes, but it's the minimum of what you would need if you were thinking to start a business, touching on all the systems of business. So at least somewhere you've at least identified the systems of business once.
I find it so fascinating that so many universities, not only UB, are putting in schools and centers for entrepreneurship. Back in the day, that was like what you did when you didn't go to college, right? You had your own business. So for me, having grown up in family business all along and running my own businesses all this time, I'm so glad, because when we're doing whatever both of us are doing in our private professions, it's great to know that there's something that exists in the community to foster that, right? Because we're all going to these cottage-born industries. More and more entrepreneurial type things are happening for our society with the onset of telecommuting, which happened back in the 80s and 90s. Anyways, we're just coming to a close here, and I want to talk about you a little bit more. What is it that you do as a busy entrepreneur, a woman that's clearly raising a family, a home, spearheading this new center that's taking off? What do you do to relax? What do you do to be mindful? Because we all need sort of that motivation, right? It's like Zig Ziglar says, bathing is recommended daily, like motivation. There's a reason for it.
I so agree with that. So thank you for asking that. I go somewhere and stimulate my brain, and that relaxes me. So I get relaxed when I'm out of all my environments.
That's me too.
So isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So people will say, isn't it more hectic to go somewhere? I said, no, when I go somewhere, there's nothing I can be working on,
right? Theoretically,
right? Unless I get on a computer, and I'm visually stimulated.
Yeah.
I'm learning new things.
So where is that for you?
Oh, it could be anywhere. Probably urban. I love cities, but I love farms, and it could be anything. I just love learning anything. So if I have an opportunity, or at any time I have an opportunity that I can accept, I will try to do something I've never done before, or go somewhere I've never been before, and that to me recharges me, and that's my peace. And I love that you actually can understand that, because it doesn't make sense to most people.
Well, for me, it's skiing, because I have to think about not falling down, and I can't answer the phone. I can't respond to an email, and the cold air and sort of flying down a mountain. I only learned to ski a few years ago, so it's something that I'm still learning. But for me, it drives that inner peace in the same way cycling does. I was never very athletic before, so I found that later on in life. And I find that for me, that's great. The other thing that does it for me is when I go off to a friend's house that I haven't seen in a long time, and I'm immersed in their world. It always, not that I don't think their worlds are fabulous, but when I come back home to my world, I'm like,
it's great, right?
It's great.
And I feel like that even when I go to anywhere. So for me, it's probably, my head's going, it's probably a city. I love learning about new cities. And when I go to a city, maybe I go to a museum.
Oh, I
And
love museums.
Love that, right?
Yeah.
Or I just love seeing something I haven't seen before. And focusing on what is new for me is my meditation, really. That's anytime I'm focusing on something else, I'm not focusing on what I normally do, right? So, and I just love the visual stimulation. I love buildings. I love architecture. I love art. I love most things connected with furniture, building, art, architecture. I love all of that.
So you connect back to maybe your hobbies or special interests.
Yeah, and I love time periods and thinking about what was happening in that time period. And every city you go to brings with it a culture, a period. You know, it's usually influenced by some culture or period.
So for our viewers, I say you're probably telling them to step out of what would be their normal comfort zone or routine. And sort of the last thing I want to end with is, as entrepreneurs, we always face rejection. It's like, you know, that Einstein. I tried to make the light bulb on the 10,000th time it happened. So how do you, and then how do you also impart to your students to deal with challenging people, which is part of our society, challenging situations and rejection? And although those three things are very different, they kind of fall under the same umbrella. How do you teach someone to deal with something that's very uncomfortable, especially an entrepreneur?
That's a great advice. A great question, rather. Dealing with difficult people, I'm going to start with that because that is very challenging, and for everybody, I think. And I think peacefulness and love, and I know that sounds corny to say, but I always say, you know, if you can approach this and the first thing you can think of is doing it in a peaceful way or thinking it in a loving way, it's going to help everything diffuse. Because normally in those situations, diffusion is what we're trying to get to some rational outcome. And that you can't change people. And you now have to figure out how you're going to work within the parameters that you've been given. Try to diffuse it. Always try to diffuse it. So you can't elevate if you elevate yourself to this, that's never going to work, right? And calmness, peacefulness, love, that I think that you try to diffuse it. Now, once you diffuse it, doesn't mean it's going to work out for you. It just means that you have a calmer environment.
A better playing platform.
That's right, to come up with a solution. And with that, the solution might be that you have to adjust to the fact that there's not an agreement, adjust to the fact that this person's never going to be your best friend, whatever the case is. But I think in the calmer head is when better choices are made and better decisions are made. Accept
and transition.
Yes.
And accept the transition.
Correct.
Ultimately accept the
situation, exactly. And I think you have to actually be thinking about that. That's where the calmness and the peacefulness comes in. And, you know, I have these two young children, as you know, 20 and 23, not necessarily young, but 20 and 23, and they're very, you know, they're living their life and they're very engaged in living right now and working in cities, and their patience probably aren't as high as I'd love them to be, and I often, you know, still say to them, can I offer you some patience? And, you know, they still laugh about
Coming
that
from
comment.
the attorney.
Yeah, and I'm like, patience. And that's really, even for the students, it's patience.
Yeah.
You know, you have to let it happen in its time, but you have to keep control of yourself.
Right.
You have to keep control of your head.
One steering wheel in a car for a reason.
That's it. And then, you know, rejection is a different way of saying it's a learning piece. Rejection is what I have found historically. Rejection means that something wasn't correct, something needed to get changed. It's a learning tool. It's often, to me, I just equate it with a learning piece. You know, that's usually what it is, right? There's a rejection for a reason.
Well, I do hope that you'll join me again and let us know where the center is next year. And my closing question is, what's next up to bat for Elena? Do we know yet, or are we still living in the moment of this beautiful baby?
No, I have one more project. I'm working on a book. I'm 2 years into it, and my hope is I'll get the book published this summer. That's my imminent short-term goal, is to finish a book I've been working on, because I don't like unfinished products. So to finish my own book.
Okay, well that's what we started off with, the little mindful minute. I will commit to blah, blah, blah.
That's right.
Write that down.
That's
and let's
right.
see where we move forward.
I will.
Okay, everyone, it has been a great, thank you first of all for coming in.
Thank
I
you for
hope
having
that you'll
me.
come back. And you can find Elena, I'm sure, on the university's website.
Yes.
It's Denise DiGrigoli, live on the HAN network every Tuesday, moving you forward mindfully with people, places, ideas, and organizations. Please join us again, and you can find us online at HAN Network if you missed an episode. Thanks so much. We'll see you next Tuesday.